Welcome to our sixth Google Hangout. Thank you very much for joining us again, and look forward to sharing with you today on the subject of health and you, the glycemic index, and particularly a low glycemic diet. So thanks again for joining us, and let's get started. I have, as usual, prepared a presentation that enables you to gain a little bit more understanding without having to look at my mug the whole time. So hopefully you pick up and understand a little bit more. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the low glycemic diet, glycemic index, what is it? The effects of a high GI diet, a comparison of selected foods, low GI foods, pH and inflammatory foods, how they fit into the GI diet, eating processed foods, and how that fits in, and which nutritional supplements will make a difference for you. So what is the glycemic index? The glycemic index is a measure of how quickly foods convert in your body from the food that it was into a sugar. Now, of course, that is affected a little bit by the cooking, and I'll show you that a bit later, and the type of starch, the sugar content, and the fat. So there's a lot of different factors can affect this, but it's a number that actually shows how much your body will potentially take on as sugar, and then that would convert to fats as well. So what happens? So when we eat a meal that's high glycemic, you can see here from the picture that our blood sugar will spike. You eat these sorts of foods, sugary foods, and foods I guess I have classed as in the past as inflammatory foods. You eat these foods and you can see that your blood sugar just spikes really quickly and quite high, and then over a short period of time that dies out, that effect dies out, because what happens is when your blood sugar gets so high, insulin, which is the body's fat storage hormone, it kicks in and actually starts to take away the sugars and the fats that are in here and store them in our body. And so we end up with this situation of insulin coming in, reducing the sugars in the blood glucose, and then it drops drastically. And so we basically flatline or go moody, whatever. Of course, by comparison, a low GI diet means that you would actually end up with a less sharp rise and a slower decline. So you don't end up with that high and then the fall. But in a longer term sense as well, if you had a diet like that with a high GI, you'd actually find, 3 meals a day, you would actually find that your body would be doing this. So it's like a roller coaster of glycemic foods. So longer term, what that means is, or in fact even short term, what that means is that the good cholesterols are actually lowered and the harmful triglycerides are raised. The risk of free radicals, or the number of free radicals, is actually increased. We have reduced sensitivity for insulin because it's going through this higher roller coaster cycle. Higher blood glucose from sugars, which is a greater cancer risk, and fluctuations in those blood sugars cause a shrinkage of the memory portion of the brain. It also means that there's an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. And let's go back to that one, because this is an interesting graph that I've just done on some select foods here, but you can see a number of these foods in the middle here. We've got rice, so we've got jasmine rice, that's this one out here, which stands out a long way, and it just exceeds, in fact, the GI of dates. So if you look at the glycemic index, so how quickly dates and rice get converted in your body to sugars, you can see here that jasmine rice, steamed jasmine rice, is worse than dates. So there'd be two foods that consume with consideration, I would say. And then wild rice, brown rice. Brown rice is the best in this group of rices. And then you've got basmati rice. So what have we got up the top here? A couple of the other ones that I found fascinating was French fries we've got. But baked potatoes, if you look at mashed potatoes and steamed potatoes and boiled potatoes have dropped right back in the scale, which is quite interesting. But the worst of them all is the baked potato. So there's quite a few different foods in there, and it's quite interesting because the other thing is that carrots, juice, you can see down here, is a lot higher than cooked carrots and raw carrots. So it's quite interesting. Sorry, carrots, cooked and raw carrots. And you can see the major difference. Once you start taking out the fibre from the food, the glycemic index rises as well. So if you're taking an apple or an orange and you're converting it to just the juice, you find that that is a big effect on the GI of the food. So here's some low GI foods, and you can see rices, pasta, cereal, grains, fruits, and this is, I guess, where I really want to focus your attention, because as I said in past presentations, these breads and cereals and grains and dairy, these tend to be more of the inflammatory foods. The legumes, the things we've got here in the snacks, which is a lot of nuts, and the vegetables and the fruits, these are very much more aligned to a non-inflammatory diet, a low GI, as well as a low pH too. So you can see them in here, in this section, where we've got the pH chart, and we've got the foods in the low pH. And you can see the foods down the bottom here tend to align a lot more with the inflammatory foods. So looking more to go for the vegetables. So what does that mean? If we want to eat processed foods, how do we find it? Now, not every country in the world has adopted a symbol for low glycemic foods. In Australia, it's this symbol. And in the UK, it may well soon be this symbol. They're looking to adopt a symbol to cover it. But the US and other countries around the world have elected not to go with a GI coding, and that's primarily because they say that the GI is not the only indication of whether a food is bad, is going to affect your weight. So which supplements are going to be important? Quality multiminerals, antioxidants, because we've got those free radicals coming, quality fish oils, probiotics to restore the health of the stomach, and the fibre to actually flush out the system so that you've got a clear system. But of course, remember in fact, eating these nutritional supplements is not going to wipe out the effects of a high glycemic diet by themselves. So you're going to have to change the diet as well. So here's some sources if you want to get more information on it. So what have we talked about? In brief, it's been really brief. I feel like I've only just scratched the surface here. But we talked about the glycemic index. What is it? It's the measure of foods converting to sugars. The effects are huge. It can cause diabetes, but it also affects your moods on a short-term basis. Memory loss. Comparison, the way foods are cooked is really important. Low GI foods slant more towards the veggies and nuts and fruits. Much better for you. There are other foods that are low glycemic, and some of them aren't so good for you. Like ice cream is low glycemic, so it doesn't really reflect how good it is for you. It's low glycemic means that it's got low sugars, and it is an important factor, but it should be taken into measure with pH and inflammatory foods as well. When you're eating processed foods, if you have that symbol, or if you look for symbols that might indicate that the foods are low glycemic. So that's what we've covered today. If you like this presentation, please go to the Facebook page and like us there. Look forward to sharing with you again on another subject of lifestyle in the near future, about a week's time. And in the meantime, good health to you, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Whoops, here we go.